Welcome back to Easy English Wins. I am so glad you're here. Today, we have an amazing explainer for you. We're looking at a huge news story out of France concerning a new law banning social media for kids under 15. This topic is absolutely fantastic for our English learning because we are going to learn some incredibly useful legal, political, and everyday vocabulary along the way. Let's look at our headline on the screen. France's youth social media ban, illegal illusion. Let's break that down first. A ban is an official rule saying something is not allowed. And an illusion? Well, that's something that looks real but actually isn't. So is this new law a real definitive crackdown, or is it just a trick? Let's find out and build your vocabulary at the same time.
Here is what we'll cover in our lesson today. 1. Under 15 social media ban. 2. Why France took action. 3. The enforcement loophole. 4. France versus the EU. And finally, 5. Practical realities and pushback. Let's jump right in.
Section 1, under 15 social media ban. So the magic number here is 15. Anyone under the age of 15 is now legally barred from using social media platforms in France under this new rule. Let's look closely at that word barred, B-A-R-R-E-D. It's an adjective here that means entirely prohibited or blocked. For example, you might hear, he was barred from entering the building. A very common mistake learners make is saying barred of. Remember, we always use the preposition from, barred from. This law creates a strict, definitive age limit that essentially says early adolescence should be a completely social media-free zone. Let's look at the timeline and see how this builds. Starting on September 1st, there are immediate restrictions for new users. But what about kids who already have accounts? The law provides a grace period of 4 months. This is a wonderful vocabulary phrase for you to learn. A grace period is a temporary allowance of extra time to meet a new rule or pay a debt. For example, you have a 1-week grace period to pay your credit card bill. After these 4 months, users must comply, meaning they must follow the rule or their access is supposed to be cut off completely. The political backing for this legislation was overwhelming. In the French National Assembly, there were 279 votes in favor, just 81 against, and 66 abstentions. Let's learn that noun, abstention. An abstention is a conscious decision not to vote for or against something. If you're not sure, you abstain. So this wasn't a narrow victory at all. It reflects a highly unified push, championed directly by French President Emmanuel Macron.
Let's move on to Section 2. Why France took action. French lawmakers are reacting to mounting scientific evidence. Mounting is an excellent adjective that means growing or increasing. You'll often hear native speakers say mounting pressure or mounting debt. There is a surge, which means a sudden, powerful increase, in youth mental health issues linked to these addictive platform designs. The urgency was recently highlighted by a joint warning from President Macron and the World Health Organization. They warned that these digital spaces pose grave risks to youth. Grave means very serious. Notice the grammar here. We use the verb pose with risks. We don't say make a risk, we say pose a risk. That is a great collocation to memorize. To reinforce these health measures, the government is expanding its rules into physical spaces. The legislation extends a ban on mobile phones onto high school premises. The word premises refers to the land and buildings owned by an organization, like a school or a business. So not only are under 15s barred from social media, but teenagers will also have their phones taken completely out of high schools governed by internal school regulations. Now for Section 3, the enforcement loophole. This is where things get really fascinating. It's time for our vocabulary builder. To understand this loophole, we need to know about the DSA, or the Digital Services Act. This is European Union legislation designed to establish a harmonized set of rules. Harmonize means brought into agreement, making things consistent and uniform across all member states. Because France is part of the EU, they cannot easily create rogue national laws that contradict this broader European framework. So, to avoid clashing with the EU, French lawmakers deliberately stripped the direct sanctions, or punishments, from their own bill. Take a look at this fascinating quote from French Senate Rapporteur Catherine Morin-Desailly. She openly calls it a legal trick. Lawmakers admit that the ban applies to the minors themselves, but there is absolutely no sanction for the platforms. A sanction is a formal penalty or fine for disobeying a law. By removing these penalties against the tech giants, the law currently lacks teeth. It acts merely as a symbolic spur. Symbolic means it stands for an idea but doesn't have practical effect. It's meant to make a loud point rather than act as an immediately enforceable regulation. Which brings us perfectly to Section 4, France versus the EU.
Comparing the two approaches, French lawmakers originally favored a nuanced two-tiered system with a blacklist and parental consent. Nuanced means having subtle, complex differences, not just simple black and white. But they threw that out and pivoted to a blanket ban. A blanket ban is an absolute rule that applies to everything or everyone with zero exceptions. Why the change? It's specifically designed to serve as a symbolic pressure tactic to force the EU Commission's hand.
So what is the EU actually doing? An expert panel recommends establishing an EU-wide ban for children under 13, supporting states acting up to age 15, and mandating safety by design for older teens, which means legally forcing platforms to end addictive features like infinite scrolling. France is essentially trying to front-run these recommendations. To front-run is a great phrasal verb meaning to act before someone else to gain an advantage. By passing their own extreme, sanctionless law now, France is actively attempting to lock in higher precautionary restrictions before Brussels finalizes its continent-wide rules.
Finally, let's explore Section 5, Practical Realities and Pushback.
Okay, everyone, it's time for our shadowing practice. I'm going to read a key sentence summarizing these roadblocks at normal speed and then slower. Listen carefully. Teenagers use VPNs to easily bypass geographical blocks. Now, nice and slow, and I want you to repeat after me out loud wherever you are. Teenagers use VPNs to easily bypass geographical blocks. Great job. The verb bypass means to go around a problem or obstacle. Critics argue the September deadline is impossible because there's a lack of privacy-respecting age verification, kids easily bypass the rules, and there is a pending review by the Constitutional Council. Pending simply means waiting to happen. The Council of State warned an absolute ban likely violates fundamental human rights.
Let's look at a fantastic native English idiom used here by Senator Mathilde Olivier from the Green Party. She critically calls this a window dressing text. What does window dressing mean? In everyday English, it refers to things that are done to make a situation look much better on the outside, but which hide the real, often disappointing facts on the inside. Because this rushed bill lacks a functional age verification system and an impact study, critics say it's just political theater. It looks good, but it doesn't really work.
Which leaves us with this final, critical question on the screen. Ultimately, this domestic ban is entirely dependent on international action. Without the ability to punish tech companies, the law is frozen in place. It leaves us to wonder, will Brussels pull the trigger on continent-wide regulation, or will teens just keep scrolling? Okay, let's summarize today's lesson. We learned some fantastic vocabulary like barred, grace period, surge, sanction, blanket ban, and the idiom window dressing. Here is your homework for today. I want you to pick 3 of the new words we learned and write 3 original sentences down in the comments below. I will personally read them and give you feedback. If you found this explainer helpful, please hit that like button, subscribe to Easy English Wins, and turn on notifications so you never miss a lesson. For more news-based vocabulary, check out the other explainer on the screen right now. See you in the next lesson. Keep practicing. You can do it. Bye.